back to Making It Fun with Michael Miller Fabrics. My name is Heidi and today we are going to have some spooky fun. So the last few videos we've been showing you the new releases from Michael Miller, and one of the collections was called Nightmare at Halloween, and I thought because we're heading into October, let's do something fun with the fabric that you could use around your house. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking our stacking fabrics pattern from the Whimsical Workshop, and we're going to be making fun little Halloween baskets that you can put around your house for decor. You fill them up with your candy. You can add handles onto them and make them into bags. I just thought this would be a really fun way to show off Halloween fabric from Michael Miller. Now this project will work with any Halloween fabric you have in your stash. It's just a really fun way to spook up your house at the Halloween season. So without further ado, let's get into making stacking fabric baskets. So this is a pattern that you can find on our website, the Whimsical Workshop, if you want all of the sizes. But today's tutorial should be enough for you to follow along and make these at home without the pattern. So let's jump into what you need and how we're going to make them. So let's move these guys out of the way. So the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need 2 fabrics for your outside of the basket, and you need 2 fabrics for the lining. Now, as you can see from these, it really helps to have them contrasty and complementary at the same time because you can flip these over. The other thing that's kind of cool with these is you could turn it the other way and make it a reversible basket. So we could do it this way, so the haunted houses are on the inside and the potion bottles are on the outside. So you do have that option as well. So pick 2 fabrics you really like that when you flip over that edge, they look nice together. So there's that one. So there's that one, all nice and neat as potion bottles, or we can turn it back around and make it the haunted houses. So the next thing you need, other than the fabrics, is some Deco Bond. This is from Pellon. Let me just double, yeah, it's called Deco Bond Stabilizer, and you'll need 2 squares of these. This will give the basket some rigidity, but also makes it soft enough that you can like fold them down and store them, which I really like, so that you can put them away if you don't want Halloween baskets all year long. So you will need 2 pieces of that. Each basket size starts with everything is cut the same size. So for this guy, we used 13 inches for all the squares. And then for this guy, for this one, we used 15 inches. This one we used 13 inches. And then this little guy we're making right now, we started with 11 inches. So you can make these out of any size square. Just know that the square size is including the front of the basket and the sides on either side. So as you can see here, if I fold this along the seams, there's my 15-inch square, but then when you fold it up, they go into the sides. So that's how you can decide if you want to do your own, but if not, keep it simple and follow along. So we have our pieces. I'm going to put these guys out of our way. The other thing that you're going to need, a pair of scissors, a pen, Wonder Clips are extremely helpful, and a small ruler to help you measure out your box corners. So those are the tools you're going to need. So the first step we're going to need to do is put the Deco Bond onto the wrong side of the fabric that you're choosing as your outer basket fabric. So I've already done this first one, but let me show you how to do it. First, you're going to make sure that your fabric square is nice and pressed. You don't want any wrinkles in that fabric. It makes it a lot easier to align the stabilizer on there. Then you're going to place the stabilizer shiny side up. So there's a dull side and a shiny side. You want shiny side up. That means the glue is facing up, and that means we want to put our fabric wrong side down. Just smooth it out, make sure everything's aligned. And then I start in the middle and I work out to the edges, and it will take a couple of seconds because the iron, this is a little iron, it doesn't get as hot as a big guy. And as you're ironing around, it goes through the fabric faster than the stabilizer, so that's why I like to do fabric side up. and the heat is going through the fabric and activating the glue on the stabilizer. So the biggest thing on this is you want to get the whole thing pressed, but it's really important to get the edges pressed so that they're not flipping apart while you're trying to sew this. This is a very friendly, very beginner project. So, you know, just go slow. You'll be fine if you haven't sewn before, but if you're an expert sewer, this should be a snap. You should have no problem with this. All right, once we've got this all pressed down, and it looks like it needs a little more heat, so I'm going to finish getting this pressed down, and then I'll be back to show you the next step. All right, I have both my outer basket squares with their pellon on the back. I'm going to move this out of the way because I think we are done ironing for the moment. And we are ready to start assembling our basket. Now these baskets are so fun and easy to make that you can do them for any holiday. I've actually just made them out of really funky, fun fabric and have them around my house for organizing. They're also great as gift baskets. You could just make one of these, put your gifts in there and wrap it up with another piece of fabric, and there's a gift for you. So to make the outer basket, what we're going to do is we're going to check our fabric directions. So these are the funky skeletons from Nightmare at Halloween from Michael Miller Fabrics, and I want to make sure that all the skeletons are standing upright, so I'm going to put those right sides together, and I'm going to actually, this is the back, you're not going to see it, I'm going to put a little arrow on my two squares so that I know I've got them going in the right direction, and when I go to sew, I sew the right 3 edges. So there's a little tip for you there. Now I like making these with Wonder Clips. These are they're one of the best sewing tools that we've got. They make it easy to put thicker layers together, but they also work really well for these thinner layers because they keep them together. And as I'm manipulating it under the machine, I'm not poking myself with pins. So I know where my arrow is. I'm just going to clip the 3 sides I want to sew. And then I'm going to go over to the machine here and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam down both sides and across the bottom. For the baskets, I tend to use a 1/4 inch seam because I already have my machine set up for that. But if you want to cut your square a little bit bigger, or if you want your baskets just a smidge smaller, you could do a 1/2 inch seam, but just make sure you do that seam throughout the whole project. So that's the outer basket ready to sew. Now we're going to put the lining together. Right sides together. Now my lining is not directional, so I'm not going to worry about it. And if you have wrinkles in there, you can just give it a good press, get rid of the wrinkles so everything's nice and flat. I find if you work with flat fabric, it's going to line better throughout the project, and it's just a little annoyance you won't have to deal with. If you have wrinkles or the edges are curling up, it's a little harder to align stuff. So here's our lining. And we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to sew down the sides across the bottom, and we're going to leave an opening, and leave a nice opening, because the bigger the opening, the easier it is to turn. But you also don't want to get too close to your corners, because then it makes it, you're fighting with your corners at the same time. So I always go in the bottom, in the center, and I leave about a 3 to 4 inch opening. And I will mark it so I don't forget to not sew that area. And then I'm going to clip these 2 layers together as well. Another tip when you're doing any kind of bag or anything that has an opening, and I learned this from a friend of mine who is a master bag maker, is what you can do is you can start at the edge and stitch up the 1/4 inch. So where I drew those lines would actually be stitch lines, then stitch across here and down the side. Same thing here. I'll start here, go like this, and down the side. Then when I turn it right side out, because of that stitching, the edge will want to just fold in a lot cleaner and more even. So that's all right. We're back. We've got everything sewn. This is our outer basket sewn. I've sewn all the way around. This is the lining. We sewed all the way around but left an opening for turning, so don't forget that part. It's important. And we're ready to now do our box corners, which is what gives the shape to the basket. You use box corners for these, you use them for tote bags, you use them anytime you want something to have a bottom to stand up. And a quick way to know how to figure out what this square is you take the depth of whatever you're doing. So say you're doing a 4-inch bag and you divide it in half, that would be 2 inches. So you could do 2-inch squares. Some people will add seam allowance, which would make it 2.5-inch squares, but I always just take the width, divide it in half, and that is close enough for me to be happy. So you can take with that however you want to do it. So now that I've explained to you how you do it, just know that the pattern will usually tell you what size you need to cut. And in this case, for this little basket, we're going to do a 2.5-inch corner. For the 13-inch squares, we did a 3-inch box corner. And then on the 15-inch squares, we did a 3.5-inch box corner. That's what gave us the nice shape. So you can use that if you're going to make any of these following this video. The largest is 3.5, medium is 3, and the smallest is 2.5. So that being said, we're ready to start making our box corners. And usually in a pattern, they'll tell you to do complete one whole thing and then repeat with your lining. I'm going to do them for the video at the same time. So we are going to go ahead and take a ruler, and you want to make sure you're on the sewn corners. Don't do it up here where the opening is, or you'll be sad, it won't work. So you need to do it where there is a sewn side and a sewn bottom, and you're going to measure over 2.5 inches, and you're going to draw your line. Move that out of the way for a second. We're going to do the same thing on this corner and repeat for the lining. And make sure you draw the line. There we go. And then once you have those drawn, you go ahead and cut. Now, some people will use a rotary cutter for this. I get a little nervous in that corner. I don't want to go past my drawn line, so I tend to use a good pair of scissors and cut through all the layers. And this is why it's important to know your measurement and make sure you've got it correct before you cut. So always measure twice, cut once. And now we have our box corners cut. And so how you do this, and I'll do the lining after because it's the same way, is you're going to open this up. And you're going to see you've got your bottom seam and your side seam. And you're going to fold them till they meet. Okay? Then what you want to do is you want to turn the seams. You want the seams to nest. You're going to turn one to the left and one to the right. And you're going to find your clips because I moved them. And you're going to clip that seam. You can see it makes a nice straight edge, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch away from the edge. So I usually put 3 clips on these little guys. Then I rotate this around, and we're going to repeat on the other side. But the important thing here is your bottom seam. I've already got it going to the right. So when I do this side, I want to make sure I also push this side to the right so that it nests nicely and we don't get a twisted seam in the bottom of our basket. All right, now we've got them both sewn. This is sewn on those, and then this is sewn here. The one thing that I did not tell you about, when you leave your opening, part of the reason we do it in the center is so it doesn't run all the way over to our box seam. So make sure when you're leaving your opening, maybe mark your box seams before you leave your opening, so you make sure this isn't running into the box seam, because that'll just kind of make it a little messier to put it together. So now that we've got both of those, we're going to turn our outer basket right side out, and we're going to poke out all our corners. You can just use your finger, or if you have like a stiletto, or not stiletto, a purple thing or something with a rounded end that's a chopsticks. Chopsticks are really handy. Just pop out your corners, make sure they're nice and neat. And that is our cute little outer basket. Now our lining, we're going to leave inside out, because what the next step is, we're going to open up our lining and we're going to slide our outer bag, or outer basket, I should say, into the lining. And we're going to line up our side seams on both pieces. So the lining is here, and then the outer basket is there. And you want to make sure, again, you're trying not to twist your seams. So we're going to have this one follow itself up, and this one thankfully goes the same way. Doesn't always work out that well, and if it does, you can always take a little snip in the seam, but not all the way up to the line, and that will help get rid of the twist. But this time this worked out perfect. Both sides lay flat, inner and outer. And we're not quilting this, so it's really not the end of the world if your seam is twisted. Now that being said, you could make these with fusible fleece or batting, and you could quilt them. And they'd have a little more body and stability to them. But again, I always design these kind of as you put them out and then you put them away, and it's nice that they lay nice and flat to store them. I also travel a lot with mine as samples, so that was the other reason I did that. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to continue to clip around the edges, just aligning all the raw edges. Oops. And I'm going to take this over and I'm just going to sew all the way around the top, and we're almost done with our baskets. We've got it all stitched around the top. And now we are going to take this opening and we're going to gently pull the outer basket through the opening to get our basket going in the right direction. And if you just go slow with this, you should be good. You shouldn't, if you pull or you get it really, if it's a real struggle, it usually means the opening isn't big enough and you might need to make your opening a little bit bigger. I would recommend using a seam ripper and not letting the seam itself rip, because it could rip your fabric. And there is the bottom with a big old string on it, the bottom of our basket, and there's our lining. And then what I like to do is make sure all my corners are popped out on all the outer and the lining of the basket, because it's a little easier when you can get your hand in there. And these look like they're all out. Now you will see, because I stitched those two short lines, look how it just wants to roll in and top stitch that closed. You can whip stitch by hand, or you can top stitch it on the machine. I'm going to do it on the machine. But if you are going to do this more as a reversible basket, then you are going to want to probably whip stitch it so you wouldn't see the stitching, though it is on the bottom, so I'm not sure. It's really up to you. But I'm going to I smoothed this out, I'm clipping it together, and I'm going to top stitch it over on the machine, just because I am lazy and don't want to hand sew. Now we're almost done. So we're going to push our lining into our baskets. We are going to, if you see this, because of the way it's assembled and one has the stabilizer and the other doesn't, you do get this cute little trim edge right there. That's just how it's rolling around the stabilizer. You could leave this just the way it is, press it and enjoy it. But because I want to turn this over, I'm actually going to push the lining all the way into the basket. I'm going to press this top edge and top stitch it, and that'll give me a nice finished edge. So back in with the ironing. And I usually will just lay this, got my cord going the wrong way here. Usually I will use my fingers to pull the lining in, and then I lay it flat on the ironing board and I will press it, and I work my way slowly but surely all the way around. I just want to make sure it's a nice even edge, and if you go too fast it can start getting sloppy. So again, rolling that lining in and ironing it. All right, now that that's pressed, you can see it doesn't have the trim at the top because I've rolled it all in, but the lining is designed to go all the way down. So if you do leave that trim, your lining will float a little bit above the bottom of the basket. Not a big deal. When you fill it with stuff, it'll just push down. And now I'm going to set up my machine and top stitch this. Now you can top stitch this with your regular foot and just sort of eyeball it, but I do think that if you do a lot of these projects, it is very helpful to invest in a top stitch foot for your machine. I absolutely love it. I've had both Bernina's and Jannomi's, and I have it on both, and I really think it makes the pieces look much more professionally finished and cleaner at the end. So let me get that top stitch on here and we will have our finished basket. All right, we have this finished. We don't need our iron anymore. I'll move that out of the way again. We have our top stitch all done. You probably see it a little better on that side. And now our fabric basket is ready to have its cuff turned down. So usually I go maybe 2 inches, but you can go as deep or as narrow as you want. You can choose not to flip it over, but once I do, I kind of run it through my hand, make sure it's nice and even. And there we go. How cute is that? All right, so we have completed our fabric basket, all ready to decorate for Halloween. These are all made with Nightmare at Halloween from Michael Miller Fabrics. This little guy here, he's got his skeletons and his pumpkins. This is the smallest of the 3. This one here is the haunted houses, and then I used the potion bottles as the lining on that one. And then finally, probably my favorite, this is all the witches, and then I used the night sky as the lining on that one. This one would be really good to like dump all your Halloween candy in and use it at the front door as you're handing out candy. This one would be good just to have around the house, maybe with candy for yourself. And then this little guy, he would be really cute for a lot of things, but I do like it fits a tissue box. So you could use this as a tissue box cover at Halloween. So those are the baskets. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial on how to do them. We've got lots of fun projects coming down the pipe. So as always, make sure you like and subscribe. You can always hit the bell if you want to be notified when a new video drops, and continue to keep making it fun with Michael Miller. And I'll see you next time. Thanks.